Welcome back to The Point. I'm Marcel Wieder. The Toronto District School Board has seen a major political shift. In the October elections, 6 incumbents lost their seats, creating a new and more diverse board. With over half of the trustees being new faces, voters have clearly shown their dissatisfaction with the previous board. I'm joined with newly elected trustee for Eglinton-Lawrence, Jennifer Arp. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Jennifer, it's been a tumultuous year at the TDSB. We've seen a trustee charged for unlawful confinement. We've had deals with China blowing up. We've had any number of issues. Really, what are the things that you see as being important in order to restore confidence back in the TDSB?
Right. I think, one of the great things is that I'm one of 11 new trustees coming on to the board, where half the board is new, and that provides a tremendous opportunity to work together, to collaborate, and to hopefully work to restoring public confidence in the TDSB, to push for more transparent decisions, and to really move forward in a positive way that benefits the well-being of the students.
So you're one of 11 new trustees you just mentioned. What are your priorities for the upcoming session?
Right. I've come to this from pretty active involvement as a parent in the Model Schools for Inner City program. The equity file is extremely important to me. I really want to push that. You see a lot when you have children in a model school. You see the flaws in the system, the lack of parent engagement, and that impacts student achievement. And I would hope that through the development of a model schools, the expansion of the Model Schools program into a proper inner city department, that we're able to reach more children, to bring greater equity to the system. I also hope with the ward that I'm representing to be able to bridge that gap between sort of the schools that are more well off versus the schools that aren't. It's something that I believe is really important when all students are working together, when all students see that not everyone has as much as others, that creates better citizens of the world moving forward.
You mentioned model schools. Can you describe a little bit more detail? Because a lot of people may not be familiar with model schools. So
Right. The Model Schools for Inner City program is a group of 150 schools. All of the schools in the TDSB are ranked on something called the Learning Opportunities Index. The lower the number, the higher the need. And so the numbers from 1 to 150 are the schools that form the Model Schools for Inner City program.
Mm-hmm. And do they receive additional funding or resources?
They do, to make up the gap, because they just do not have the ability to fundraise in the same way that other schools do. So they do receive additional funding. There are education modules that the teachers present to the class. Mm-hmm. They have there's partnership with Walmart to provide glasses and vision clinics for the students. There's health services that come in. There's money for parent engagement and opportunities for parents to bring them into the school, because parents really are an important part of children's education.
Talking about parents are really concerned about the quality of education that their kids are getting, that it's preparing them for going into post-secondary or going into vocational trades or whatever they choose. Is the system now at the level it's at able to deliver that type of service that they need?
Right. I think the system is pretty good at helping children go to university. I don't think that they're doing a really great job with giving them the tools for the modern 21st century world. There's not a lot of training on entrepreneurial skills. They're not using technology to the level that they could be. There's an emphasis that you need to actually have a physical textbook in front of you, but the TDSB needs to be looking at other options for using technology and showing students that there are other ways of doing things and preparing students for a more global economy.
It's a very interesting point that technology is now changing the landscape and how we learn and what we learn. And there's been more emphasis on that. But because of budgetary constraints, the TDSB isn't able to keep up with that. How are you going to be able to do that?
Right. one of the first things that the new board will have to do is enter budget process for this year. It essentially starts right away. There's a large opportunity for us to look at what's going on that level. I think that technology doesn't necessarily need to be expensive. The resources are there. It's how do we go about finding them, or how do we tap into teachers that are already using what's out there and bring them to the board so that they can educate their colleagues on what is going on, on the internet, web-based learning, things like that. And that will hopefully be able to relieve some of the pressure on the budget in terms of textbooks and other things moving forward.
We're seeing more schools closing because of declining enrollment.
Right.
And yet, the number of dollars is actually increased, but you have less kids. How do you balance that point out?
In my ward, we've got 3 main high schools, one of which is at 150% capacity, and the other 2 are well below where they should be. And part of it is public perception, right? You've got a lot of really desirable schools and desirable neighborhoods, and how do we take the load off of those schools and funnel them into schools that really have amazing things happening in order to be able to keep them open to service their community? Because when you're forced to close a school, you're taking something away from the community. And oftentimes the schools that are forced to shut down are in neighborhoods that need that core more than anywhere else.
You were a champion in your community to prevent the sale of land from the TDSB to private interests.
Right.
In a school that is not being used currently, but being rented out to another school. How are you able to justify keeping that property within the TDSB?
Right. Well, with that situation, there are a number of factors, one of which is the process that the board developed to decide whether a property was going to be sold or severed wasn't followed correctly, or we can't trace how it was the process that was followed. The other thing that I think is important to look at is that nobody's ever asked any questions. Well, what if the TDSB took over looking after the green space and charged a line item on the lease from the school that's currently using the school? The Catholic school down the road is only on 2 acres. So offering space to them during the day so that they can walk over and use the green space, as well as charging proper permit fees to the sports clubs that are currently using the field and getting it at a greatly reduced rate because the Montessori school is being so generous at letting them use it.
That's an interesting point that you raised. Getting better value out of existing properties.
Right.
What other areas would you like to see the TDSB explore in terms of being able to monetize some of its underperforming assets?
One of the things that the TDSB could be looking at is, what if the lease was only a Monday to Friday? What if the lease only included the gym from 8 till 5, and then the TDSB was free to permit the gym in the evenings and on the weekends, right? It's how do we work with our lease partners in a better way to try and come up with more creative solutions and ways to generate revenue so that we can maintain the properties that we have, we can keep what we have, but be able to fund capital repairs and things that need to happen.
Those are all excellent points. I'm going to look forward after December the 2nd, is it, that you're sworn in?
December 1st.
December 1st, okay. And hopefully we'll have you back on again and give us an update on how things are at the TDSB. I was joined with Jennifer Arp, the trustee-elect of Eglinton-Lawrence.
Thank you.
Thank you. Up next on The Point, Craig Hewson from Aurora Strategy Group is back with more on the Ontario Legislature.